Good morning. Welcome to New York City Emergency Management and the 10th John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service graduation. Please join me in standing for the singing of the national anthem by Regina Wilson, firefighter. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you, Regina. I am Christina Farrell, First Deputy Commissioner here at New York City Emergency Management. I have had the pleasure of meeting many of you over the years, but for those that I haven't met, and those of you on Zoom, including our Commissioner, who has a case of COVID as we speak, we are happy that everyone is here, however you are joining us today. So 10 years, a decade, and what a decade it has been. This all began as an idea and a tribute to honor our friend and colleague, the late John D. Solomon, as you know, an accomplished journalist, and for us, a New York City Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT team volunteer, who tirelessly promoted emergency preparedness. Since its start as the first student fellowship dedicated to emergency management, I dare say this fellowship has left an indelible mark on public service and on this amazing city that we all call home. 2020, 2021, 2022 has been a terrific year for the fellowship. Our city has made huge strides as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, and we have been able to focus on making this fellowship a fulfilling experience for our fellows and mentors alike with a variety of programs and events throughout the year, including a behind-the-scenes look at the New York City Marathon, along with our 4th annual alumni career panel. Our fellows have worked, like in other years, with several New York City agencies and the American Red Cross in Greater New York, and served communities across all 5 boroughs, all while balancing busy school schedules, part-time jobs, vibrant social lives, and more. This past year, and all of these 10 years, have been made possible by so many wonderful people. First and foremost, I want to thank our friends and extend our appreciation to the Solomon family and friends, especially Jim, Vanita, Abby, Ann, and Dick. It is through their love for John and this program that we have been able to continue this fellowship year after year, even during the pandemic, and to make it a rewarding experience for all involved. Thank you to our mentors who have guided our fellows on this journey and continue to provide countless hours of wisdom, support, and events to keep us running this program. In addition to having 18 alumni out of 80, I don't think that's a bad number, that currently work for city government, I'm proud to share that several of them have continued their path right here at New York City Emergency Management, and some are with us today, including Amy Huang, Dustin Ridner, Robert Bristol, Stephanie Liu, Angie Koo, and Andrew Wasserman. Of course, I would be remiss not to acknowledge Ira Tannenbaum and our newest member, Alyssa Borger, who's behind the scenes, from our External Affairs Strategic Partnerships Division, for their unwavering dedication and being the driving force between all facets of the program, both large and small. I am truly thankful for all your hard work. As the 10th year of the fellowship draws to a close, we know that we're just getting started. Our mentors have interviewed finalists, and later this week, we will be announcing the 2022-2023, so starting to make it, John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service class, and we know that they will no doubt leave their mark, as all of you, our current fellows, and the alumni before you have. Now it is my pleasure via Zoom to introduce you to the Emergency Management Commissioner, Zach Iscol.
Thank you, Christina. Can you all hear me okay? I'll take that as a yes. Well, hi and welcome. I'm so happy to join all of you today for the 2021-2022 class of John D. Solomon Fellows. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Zach Iscol. I am the New York City Emergency Management Commissioner. I first want to just start by saying thank you to my team at New York City Emergency Management, First Deputy Commissioner Christina Farrell. Thank you, Acting Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs, Ira Tannenbaum, and Strategic Partnership Specialist, Alyssa Borger. You've made this program a beacon of public service for leaders, for the leaders of tomorrow. So thank you for all the work that you've done to make this program a success. Second, I just want to emphasize the importance of this fellowship in New York City and to thank all of you for being a part of it. Over the past 10 years, we've had 88 outstanding fellows. They've worked with 15 different agencies for a total of nearly 40,000 hours. They've answered the call to dedicate their lives to public service. And as you'll hear from Mayor Adams shortly, you're all shining examples of the future of the city's workforce. So thank you, and thank you to Mayor Adams for joining us today for this incredibly happy occasion. To our fellows, Jocelyn, Taylor, Esme, Joseph, Seth, Kat, Chase, Leanna, and Zane, like John D. Solomon, you are extraordinary leaders. Whether you realize it or not, you've transformed the field of emergency management with your involvement in this program. Just like your mentors, there's no doubt that each of you will have a lifelong impact on the city and on this field in the years to come. The fact that many of our program alumni have gone on to become mentors themselves is just one of many examples of how these experiences can guide you well after graduation. As we mentioned, we're currently putting together the next class of John D. Solomon Fellows. Thanks to the generosity of many of you here today, we will be able to continue this program with a class of 10 fellows this fall. And lastly, I'd like to take a moment just to recognize the Solomon family and to say thank you. This is an incredibly fitting way to honor John and his legacy. When I was a young man, a young kid, I had an older brother figure named John Schlesinger, who died tragically at a very young age in a car accident. And at his funeral, the rabbi pulled all of us aside. I was about 14 years old when John was killed. The rabbi pulled all of us aside and said that we all now have an obligation to live our lives for John because of the life that he was not able to live. And when I then deployed as a Marine to Iraq, when I lost friends overseas, when my Marines lost fellow Marines overseas, I found myself repeating that rabbi's words far too often, that my Marines now had an obligation to live their lives for the Marines who would not be coming home. And when I think about John D. Solomon's legacy, when I think about the Solomon family, it is incredible how you have chosen to honor his legacy, that there are so many fellows that are now going on and doing great work to honor his life and so much of his unfilled life because he died at such a young age. So thank you for honoring him. Thank you for ensuring that his legacy goes on. And thank you for giving us this opportunity here at New York City Emergency Management. And finally, a sincere thank you to all of you, fellow supervisors, alumni, staff, for making this program possible. We are so excited to have each one of you in the fellowship family. Thank you all so much.
We will now hear from the stars of the show, our fellow graduates. We will start with Jocelyn Molina, who's from the New York City Fire Department.
A privilege and an honor to work alongside New York's bravest at the Fire Department of the city. I was placed within the Office of Public Information to support both external and reflect on my time at the FDNY. I am proud of the scope of the work. Name a few things that I did. I supported programs in FDNY, a streaming platform in which fire and EMS highlights of this work include drafting the 2020 transcribing products to communicating with various sports teams to get pieces. I also supported researching various podcast awards for possible submissions and information. Of my time was also to of historical artifacts. The museum releases a history podcast, events, and equipment. Call me a history nerd, but this was my favorite of the podcast. I edited these scripts and supported the museum, creating closed captioning for a video to be also able to visit the trip for anyone. The task I did was help to create the for this year's Medal Day. One of my proudest feats was sneaking, and so I can be eternalized as a memory of that. I hope it ends up in the calendar. Plus, through all this work, it is clear that the work of the department and the smaller ECC service and the work to maintain communication. Joe, Kristen, Frank, and many others who taught me so much. So the FDNY and the John D. Solomon, all these opportunities. I speak for all the fellows when I say that.
I would just like to note that it is Nell's third day with us. We asked her this morning to fill in to do this, so thank you. And thank you, Jocelyn. I would also like to note, Pascal, that Jocelyn mentioned. She was a fellow a few years ago, so the cycle is repeating itself, and we are appreciative to see that. Next, we will hear from Taylor Gerber. She was the fellow at New York City Department of Education, and she, through the wonder of technology, is joining us remotely.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Taylor, and I have the pleasure of being this year's fellow at the New York City Department of Education, Office of Emergency Management. This was my first experience working in city government, which is quite different from the scope of practice I use in public health policy and healthcare. However, I quickly learned that the same public health lens can be used and integrated into emergency management, especially when it comes to preparing and building resilient communities. Through my experience, I had the opportunity to regularly be on calls with multiple agencies, stakeholders, and city leaders for meetings that range from winter weather advisory, summer cooling centers, to preparing for hurricane season. Additionally, I was able to assist the emergency manager with planning for the DOE. One of the main projects I worked on entailed revising essential functions for continuity of operations planning, and I was able to partake in citywide COOP conference regarding cybersecurity preparedness and response. The conference helped our COOP team to identify gaps in our IT plan and revise protocols to ensure preparedness pre, during, and post downtime. Another part of the DOE's Office of Emergency Management focuses on making sure school sites and emergency shelters are compliant to the Americans Disability Act. On multiple occasions, I was able to tag along with the Disability Access and Functional Needs team as they traveled to different school sites, ensuring that buildings met all ADA requirements. Following these visits, we drafted extensive reports when construction was deemed necessary and worked with contractors to execute those plans. Through my time at the DOE, I have come to grow a new appreciation for just how much planning goes into keeping New York City safe and prepared. At this time, I just want to take a moment to thank the Solomon family for such a wonderful opportunity. This experience has helped me grow professionally and will influence my path forward in public service. I also want to give a special shout out to Alyssa at NYCM. Even though she had come in around halfway as our fellowship coordinator, she has done a great job at supporting all of us fellows and making herself available. And lastly, I want to give a special thank you to my supervisors, Keith and Lillian, and the entire Office of Emergency Management at DOE, who I feel so lucky to have worked with. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor, and we will get you your certificate another time. Now, we will hear from Esmeralda Huerta, who was stationed at the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, so a pretty quiet year for Esmeralda, I think.
Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Esmeralda Huerta. I go by Esme, and it was a pleasure to be able to work at DOHMH this year. I want to start off by thanking the Solomon family and NYCM for making this opportunity possible. I also want to give a big shout out to my family over at DOHMH, Frank, Hannah, Eddie, Lou, Yeshi. I'm probably forgetting names because I'm nervous. And it was a wonderful year. I learned so much from being able to look at how DOHMH responds behind the scenes. Some of the things that I was able to work on this year included creating a unit-specific brochure to highlight the work that we do. This is pretty important because with over 21,000 employees, DOHMH, units can get lost in the mix. I also helped create documents to facilitate reporting by member organizations to unit, because OPER, the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response within DOHMH, supports organizations all across the city to prepare for and respond to disasters. I learned how DOHMH integrates community organizations into the city's ICS structure, both during activation and during clear skies weather. And I learned about the work that is being done within DOHMH to help prepare for, and I want to say thanks again for this opportunity. I had a wonderful year.
Next, we'll hear from Joseph Yun, who was assigned to the New York City Department of Environmental Protection.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Yoon. I was the fellow placed at the Department of Environment here through the fellowship program. This year, an interesting year for this, as many of my fellows started right after the remnants of Hurricane Ida believe that this situation really gave us a new perspective, especially on how the city government responds to emergencies and also within the other work that we've been doing, and especially through our schooling program. Myself, I've been working part-time within a community organization that I've been with for the last 6 years. And on top of that, finishing my graduate program and also working with the Department of Environmental Protection has been a very rewarding experience. I'd like to thank the Solomon family for this opportunity, NYCEM, our New York City Emergency Management for keeping this program going. And also I'd like to thank Natan and Neil from the Environmental Protection who have been my advisors and have been very flexible with my work that has been happening. Sorry, I need to pull up the slide real quick. In my role here at DEP, I did shadow the senior emergency manager when responding to water and sewer emergencies throughout New York City. The structures that are in place in the city are well over 100 years old at times. And while we may not know what goes on under the streets in this great city, it is definitely something that needs to be monitored 24 hours a day. I also prepared a lot of reports on research for community and civic organizations that New York City EP could potentially partner with. I researched on flash flooding deployables, especially after the Hurricane Ida and the affected communities who are vulnerable from flash flooding and from the vulnerable housing situations that they may be in. I also assisted in updating and standardizing template emails that go out through our DEP's Emergency Communications Center. I also helped with the community board hydrant request lists, which are sometimes delinquent in how residents may abuse the system through the fire hydrants. I've also updated with the physical emergency plan binders, prepared and drafted further research. I did a lot of research, and also helped by providing meeting minutes and sitting in these meetings with ongoing projects, especially through our Southern Queens, Jamaica Queens area. And so this has been definitely a great experience. Again, thank you to everyone. I hope that the next incoming class will feel the same way as we did here. Thank you.
So to echo something that Joseph said, Hurricane Ida and the devastating impact it had across the city happened September 1st. I think the fellowship started about a week later, and we pretty much, September is National Preparedness Month, so that's when we had a big thing planned for September 2nd in Times Square to do our new ads, something the Solomons have been involved in before. All of that was cut, and pretty much the one thing, we had two things last September. The kickoff to the Solomon Fellowship and the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Those were the two things that we did not cancel that month. So, you know, mainly because we wanted to get the fellows working, and so we needed to get them in the mix. But, you know, especially for places like DEP, which are the unsung heroes of the city, I'm pretty sure people want their water, want their toilets to flush, all of those things. So thank you, Joseph, for all the work you were doing. So now, as we're sitting in the Emergency Operations Center, we will welcome up Seth Kerr, who was our fellow that focused on emergency center operations here at Emergency Management.
Hello, everyone. As was said earlier, my name is Seth Kerr. I had the honor of working right here in this room on this wonderful podium for 9 months this year, and working with wonderful Rob Cohen and Megan Conway, who are in the back, who were fantastic supervisors. Two of the primary things that I worked on this year were tabletop exercises. I had the opportunity to design one in coordination with the Transportation and Infrastructure branch, who taught me so much. It was a really fun experience to learn about how TTXs work, and my one focused specifically on power. So I learned a lot about how Con Ed operates and how technical and complicated that can be, as well as how NYCEM responds to power outages and how that process works. I also had the opportunity to be part of designing a new hire TTX. We've been fortunate enough here at NYCM to have a bunch of new staff come on board over the last 9 months, and senior leadership believed it was a good opportunity to do a series of tabletop exercises, 2 separate exercises that had the same scenario that we did in March, and I got to be a participant in that and the planning process, and then obviously sit during those exercises to take notes of how it operated. So learned a lot through that process. It was very interesting and informative operation, and I'm really happy that we have our new hires on board because they're phenomenal. They did an amazing job, and the team, it was really great to see them thrive and succeed. The other opportunity that I had was working as an evaluator on the Continuity of Operations Cybersecurity Conference. That was with Do It, the city's IT agency. That was also very informative. As someone who is not overly tech savvy, to get to sit in and evaluate the conference, the structure of how it went, and also listen to the on to cybersecurity challenges and how they will continue the process. And finally, I had the opportunity to be a part of proposals. One of the things I admire most about the EOC unit and the readiness branch is they're always looking to improve, always looking to excel. So there's a number of proposals that are underway to make the unit stronger, the Readiness Bureau stronger in coordination with some aspects of NYCM. So I had the distinct pleasure of being part of that process and drafting memos and participating with ideas. So it was very informative. And I want to thank, like I said, Rob and Megan and Jay Cooper and Anita Sherry, who are the commissioner and deputy commissioner for the Readiness Branch, and the Solomon family, of course, because I would not be here without this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thanks, here. So next, we will hear from Catherine Zapata. She was the Government Relations Fellow here at Emergency Management, and she did such a great job in the meetings and different things that she was involved in that Donovan Richards, the Queensborough president, snapped her up, and she's already working there, which is terrific for our government relations staff when they see a friendly face at the meeting. So congratulations, Catherine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine Zapata, and I had the great honor of being the John Solomon Fellow under the Government Relations Unit with New York Emergency Management. When I've had numerous people ask me, what was it like working at NYCM? And I always said, it was a public agency that was dedicated for the public good. And the Government Relations Unit taught me that through 3 different initiatives that it did. First, having a large presence in intergovernmental affairs. The intergov team was always accessible and open to not only hearing from stakeholders, but also letting others in district cabinet meetings, civic engagement efforts, and providing your daily constituents what NYCM did. Through my time with government relations, I was able to understand why this agency was a necessity for all, but also what it meant to be prepared in New York City. As Christina alluded to, we were, our first week, we came in during Hurricane Ida, so understanding that rope, but also coming in during the 333 Bronx fire, meeting with constituents, holding service centers, understanding what was it that the community needed to exceed that during that time was very instrumental. The next was the focus on legislation. As a team, we provided amendments to various committees. We were able to draft the testimonies and also interacted with various chairs of pertinent committees like City Council's Committee on Resiliency, Infrastructure, and Transportation. Through that, we worked, collaborated, and supported various stakeholders. Throughout my first month, we had NATO come in. It was a great experience to meet them. We also were on various Zoom calls with Consulate General Office, the Brooklyn Borough President, Antonio Reynoso, and various council members. Government Relations Unit really flourished in civic efforts through its CERT program, having newsletters to its various stakeholders, and having a podcast both in English and Spanish, but also alerting its community about its Notify NYC program that is in 13 different languages and ASL as well. All encompassing, the agency has taught me how to be proactive rather than reactive. As a Queens native, I never heard about the New York City Emergency Management Unit until I applied for the fellowship. There must be a need for not only emergency management, but preparedness on all levels. The need to be public servants, but also to act on what each community needs to further is something that I've learned. Overall, skill and dedication for the betterment of New Yorkers and to be prepared. Thank you all for the opportunity and the honor to serve alongside the Government Relations Unit. As Christina alluded, I now work with the Queensborough President, Donovan Richards. Very grateful for that. Thank you all for being here today, and I'm looking forward to talking further about my experience. Thank you. We will now hear from Chase Lattermilk. She was with the Strategic Partnerships Unit here at Emergency Management. Chase, this past weekend, graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I am also a graduate, so I will admit recommending her, and happily she worked out well. And so Chase is still in North Carolina, so she is going to join us remotely.
Hey, good morning. Go Heels. All excited to join you from North Carolina. I had a very unique position within this fellowship where I started in February instead of at the beginning of September. So I only had about half of the usual time that a fellow has. But even in that half time, I was able to learn so much and do so many different projects. So I was placed in the Strategic Partnerships Unit, right alongside Alyssa and Ira. And a great thing, and something I'm so thankful about, is that I was automatically just part of the team. I was not treated like an intern or anything like that. I was just a part of the team and able to start on projects. One of the first projects I did was create a cybersecurity infographic and 2-pager. I really think that that's one of the big things that emergency management has in the future. And so it's something I'm really interested in. And then a lot of the projects I did was kind of planting seeds in a garden that I probably won't see. That's including assisting in the JDSF fellow interviews and placements for this next year. And then doing things like creating a Solomon Fellowship communication plan, including a social media plan for JDSF for advertising and then for fellows throughout the program. And so those were really exciting projects for me to do and to just help the team out in the future. Assisting in graduation planning was a big thing as well. Even though I was virtual, there was an amazing amount of things that I could help Alyssa and the team do from North Carolina. And really at the end of the day, the biggest thing that I received out of this was learning day-to-day emergency management. I absolutely love the field of emergency management and definitely want to continue my career within emergency management. And so this was an amazing opportunity for me to learn more about different sides of emergency management and different sides of relationship building and communication. I definitely want to do a big shout out and a thank you to Alyssa and to Ira and the entire team at Strategic Partnerships, and definitely to Christina for recommending this opportunity to me and being really on my side through this whole thing. So thank you all so much.
Next, we will hear from Leanna Molnar. She was a fellow at Emergency Management's Risk Reduction and Recovery Unit.
Hello, my name is Leanna Molnar. I was a part of the Risk Reduction and Recovery Unit, and a lot of what Risk Reduction and Recovery does is sort of the long-term resiliency and emergency management plans that go into this for how emergency plans play out. And so over the past 9 months, that sort of manifests plan update, which obviously post-IDA, as we've mentioned, is gave me some really important context for how to go about some plans and the planning that goes into. So the team, as a part of that, was tasked with updating these things called SMSAs, which are Stormwater Mitigation Study Areas, which are basically priority areas for flooding locations. And so we did a whole bunch of workshops with different city agencies to understand their sort of strategic initiatives for how to prepare these specific forms, whether they were still useful since they were a part of the initial 2007. And so in these series of workshops, I learned a lot about agency coordination, what it takes to kind of build out these plans and all of the different parties and pieces that fit into these different types of plans. So I also was able to contribute to the plan itself in a small section, but that information and research was sort of informed by one of the longer term projects that I worked on, which is one of the one-pagers that I did, which is sort of a highlight overview of 5 different storms that historic storms that happened through kind of delineating what happened during the storm, what was NYCM's response, and what were the recovery efforts in the recovery. So there were 5 high-level ones that were Ida, Isaias, COVID, Winter Storm Jonas, and 2007 tornado that was the impetus for the flash in the first place. So bringing everything full circle. And yeah, so that's largely what I was a part of during my time here. I just also reiterating thank you so much to Melissa and Ahmed and to the whole team for this opportunity. It was really great, and I learned a ton, especially about flooding in New York City, which is very cool. Thank you.
Leanna. Our last fellow is Zanae Gates, I apologize. She is currently in the middle of a grueling final, from what I hear, so we gave her the morning off, but she was stationed at the Red Cross in Greater New York, which is pretty much our strongest nonprofit partner, and always a great placement, so we are grateful to the Red Cross and Zanae for all the work she did this year. Now I will invite our dear friend Jim Solomon up to give some remarks from the family, but I also just wanted to take a moment to recognize Deputy Mayor Ann Williams-Easom, who is with us today, who I know is a friend of Jim Solomon, a friend of Emergency Management, so we appreciate her getting here in advance of her boss, who will be here in a minute or two, and helping us to coordinate things today. So now, Jim.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. On behalf of my brother John's family and friends, I have the privilege of congratulating the wonderful John D. Solomon Fellows and the fellowship on its milestone. Joined here today by lots by a stream, there, John's wife Abby, remarkable daughters Sarah and John's niece Mena, Benita, are also all know John's historical our folks watching right now, welcome to all. Mayor, I'm going to cede the floor to you, Mr. Mayor. Would you like me to continue, sir, or? All right, well, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of John's family and friends, welcome, John D. Solomon Fellowship. Those who can't see off camera, the Mayor of New York City just arrived. Thank you, sir, so much for honoring John and the fellows with your presence today. My brother John would be deeply humbled. However, sir, I must say, John was a diehard Nets fan. Going back to the ABA and Dr. J, which I might add is the only time the Nets have won a championship. So John would have appreciated into a longer Nets playoff run this year. Hopefully next year, when you come back, hint, hint, Nets will be title bound. All right. So we got, that was, you didn't get, again, not on the record, but yeah, guarantee, is that a guarantee, sir? We're now on the front page of the Post and the Daily News, I think, with a guarantee. I'd like to give a shout out to our wonderful Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services. Thank you, Ann. Being here, friendship, helping make today possible. Your devotion to the city, particularly on behalf of our youth and most vulnerable. Thank you, Commissioner Iskell, for your kind words, your warmth, for your service, both here and abroad. Fellowship family, feel better soon. Everyone gathered here today, our family can't thank you. The truth of the matter is, we're here, John is not. Recently, one of John's beloved grade school teachers wrote to me, John's photo sits atop his desk, so he can see it every day. I know that he's not alone in this sentiment. Amidst unspeakable loss, something very John was created. Meaningful, something civic-minded, something rigorous, something fun, something of the moment, also ahead of its time. Something to benefit all New Yorkers. John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service. The idea for this program can be traced to a green, short-sleeved shirt in a room of dark suits, John's Shiva. The shirt wearer was the Office of Emergency Management's Assistant Commissioner, Ira. We'd never met, who has come to be like family. Clad in his official attire, Ira had graciously come to pay his respects. He shared with us John wasn't easy on him or his agency. He spoke candidly about how relentless John could be, ideas, enthusiasm, albeit in John's lovely, very John way. Ira told us how much they would miss John's passion and his ideas. How sad. Not just sorry, how sad. For their loss. Months later, Ira invited us to meet with his colleagues, including First Deputy Commissioner Christina Farrow, whom also worked with John, whom our family cannot be more grateful nor feel more love. Quite simply, Christina Farrow, Ira Tannenbaum are the reason why this fellowship is what we hoped it would be, a program genuinely worthy During its first decade, it's taken many to raise this fellowship. I'd like to thank a few in particular, starting with the 5 prior commissioners, New York City Emergency Management, Joe Esposito, Andy Diamora, John Scrivani, and Deanne Criswell. Deanne, who's currently the head of FEMA, a great friend to this fellowship. Many will recall she spoke at last. Several others have been integral along the program's way. Catherine Howard, Bella Aspiris, Amanda Kravchik, Erica Amaya, Alyssa Borger, Bob Edgar, Gay Young, Maggie Murphy, and John Oddie. Collectively, their initiative and commitment has transformed what began as the first of its kind graduate student program devoted to emergency management. A love letter. Chase, Esme, Kat, Donna, Jocelyn, Joseph, Seth, and Taylor. Just listening to you this morning, no wonder that a dozen-plus New York City agencies have sought to have a John D. Solomon Fellow during the. None of you knew John personally. Through your passion, purpose, able to glimpse. Thank you for your contributions this past year. The way you inspire us all with your sense of service to others. Thank you, mentors, for your example, devoting your time and selves to the fellows, and most especially, John's beloved New York City, particularly during this time. Thank you to all of John's family and friends in this room, and not only been so supportive of this friendship, but also of our family. We cannot gratitude. In concluding these remarks, I'd rather John has the last word. On the first anniversary of John's leukemia diagnosis, October 17th, 2009, John posted an open letter of sorts, blog, in case of emergency, read Citizen's Eye View of. John titled his letter, Feeling Thankful About a Year of Thorns and Roses. In many respects, I believe it speaks to what we've all collectively experienced during these past few years. John wrote, quote, "My own personal disaster ended up teaching me about the subject matter, giving me new insight on dealing with trauma, risk, resilience, and communicating difficult subjects. Of course, I preferred to learn these lessons in another way." John went on to write, "Last week, I happened to hear Roseanne Cash's beautiful song, God is in the Roses, for the first time. It seemed so fitting for how I feel about the past year. The lyrics are particularly appropriate for a disaster blog. Roseanne Cash sings, God is in the roses, hills and the thorns, storms out on the oceans, the souls who will be. Every drop of rain that falls for those who. God is in the roses." And John concluded with the following words, quote, "Yes, thorns this year also underscore how many roses I have to be. Crisis. Remind you of that."
Thank you, Jim. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Mayor Adams to speak to everyone.
There's only one rule you must follow. You do not stand for me, I stand for you. I am not here to be served, I'm here to serve. Serving. That is how I see my life. And your words are powerful and profound as a brother. Because I never forget my mother sitting in the small kitchen in South Jamaica, Queens, telling me after an extremely horrific moment in my life, baby, you are fortunate to live long, you're going to be misfortunate to experience pain. You must find a way to turn pain into purpose. James, you found the purpose for your brother. And there is no love stronger than a brother's love. My kid brother travels with me everywhere I go. And he never fully understood why mom has 6 children and loved us all, but she just adored me. What a moment. Public service. Last night, Bernard and I were up Bronx, where an officer was shot by apprehending a dangerous person. And I walked into his hospital room, and I saw standing in the corner quietly his dad. Dad, too, is a police officer, assigned to one of the most dangerous jobs you can have in this city. Went after people who carry guns. Father and son team, just like my brother and I, just like other family members in this city, that can go off and make a great deal of money doing something else. Nothing is more profitable for the soul than public service. Being able to provide for people and to do it during calm moments is noble, but to do it in the midst of a crisis, something that is unexplainable. For you to take this course, a course that states when this city is going through a crisis, you want to step up and be a part of it. The average person and their natural response is to run away from a crisis. You are saying you want to go towards the crisis. Think about that for a moment. What does that say about you? What does it say about your character? That you want to understand how to help people during a crisis. It's not only getting through that crisis, but I'll never forget in my early days of policing responding to a fire, and the family member risked his life to get a picture of his son's wedding. And he held on to that picture with his dear life. And I looked at him as the building burned, but how much joy he had of just having that picture. We may look at a crisis, a flooding, a storm, a fire, as a destruction of property. Not. It's how people identify themselves. Each time a building is burned is memories of when a family spoke to their son or daughter the first time when they was going to college. Or that table that was destroyed could have been a table where they figured out how they were going to pay for a student loan. Or the living room couch could have been a couch where they looked through wedding photos to determine what dress to wear. Attached to crises are memories that are lifetimes of experiences. And when you go in with that understanding, you are particularly sensitive to how you deal with the emotional trauma that is associated with the tragic moment that people are experiencing. So yes, we can learn the procedures. We can learn how to deploy, how to mobilize, how to respond to the scene. But the brick and mortar cannot get in the way of the human capacity when we experience a tragedy and the trauma that's associated with it of a PTSD proportion, because people live through it over and over again. Sometimes your kind words, just taking a moment and sitting down with that person, just asking the question, who is that? I know you're happy you were able to save that photo. Hey, little Judy, I know you're happy you were able to get That little teddy bear that you hugged every night, you were able to get it out of the house. Those words mean so much. Sometimes we fail to realize the impact of the human voice and how it has the ability to just heal. That is the part of emergency management that we must understand. That human connection, not in a textbook, that's in our hearts. And every day of my life as the mayor of this amazing city, I bring that with me. I know sometimes there's the image of, this is this tough cop. I'm just a tender soul. Love this city. Love the families that are here. City means so much to America. Because what happens in New York cascades throughout this entire country. This is the place that decides American experience. I don't care where you go. There is no other place that has dream attached to their name. A German dream, French dream, Polish dream. There's an American dream. You stand between ensuring that people enjoy that dream or not. So I thank you. Thank your family. Thank your brother. Absent from the body is not absence from the spirit. Right here with us. He's watching. He had a painful transition. Sometimes the transition of the physical body fertilizes the soil of the future. And the future in front of us is because your brother lived with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This will conclude our graduation. We have a little lunch downstairs on the first floor, so our staff will help you make your way back down there. So thank you.